Okay, guys, welcome back again. Hey, Dr. Phil here. Hey, we're looking at our book, The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. We went through all five languages. We talked a little bit briefly. Again, the book's got a little bit more in depth on each one of those languages. But now we want to talk about, look at our syllabus, look at our notes about how do we apply the concepts to our daily life. And again, we understand that language can be extremely diverse. And if you don't understand the language, you won't receive any meaning behind the words. And what Dr. Gary Chapman and Paul White discovered is the same is true when we talk about languages of appreciation. How do we add value? How do we encourage our coworkers? And these five fundamental languages that we've looked at: appreciation, time, acts of service, tangible gifts, physical touch. Those are the five languages that we can identify. Now each of us has our primary appreciation language. It's the one that speaks most deeply to us emotionally. And again, inside this book, you can go and you can do and take your MBA, the Motivation by Appreciation, and you can discover what your language is. And when you do that, then that helps you kind of know yourself better as well as others. And what happens is in the Motivation by Appreciation, it's based upon the core principles that there are different ways to communicate appreciation to others. And we talked about that in the 5 ways. Secondly, individuals have a preferred way of being showed appreciation. Now again, everybody's not the same. Just like we don't have the same personalities, we don't have the same need, or the need is not met the same way when we feel valued and appreciated. For some, it is words. For some, it is gifts. For some, it is time. For some, it is acts of service. So thirdly, the most effective communication of appreciation is when it's in the receiver's preferred language of appreciation. In other words, you hit the mark with your coworker. As a manager, you hit the mark with those that you're leading on your team when you show them appreciation in the language that they truly value. And then fourthly, we discovered that messages of appreciation in languages not valued by that person, it misses the mark. Hey, you did a great job. No. If their appreciation is quality time, giving words of and hand claps doesn't do it for them. You know, they prefer that 5-minute conversation that you sit down with them and you say, hey, I just want to let you know how much we value you, how much you're adding to our team. I see your work ethic. And you get very specific in areas of showing that appreciation by giving them their time. And there's nothing to be lost and much to be gained in developing ourselves to lead and be more effective in communicating appreciation with those that we spend 15 to 20% of our life with. And we can talk about informal ways of discovering, the primary appreciation. This is the formal way, taking the test. What I always advise to do, particularly if you're managing, but particularly if you're teaching as a team, or you teacher and you have a aide in the classroom, or a bus driver and you have assistant, is that two things. You write down, you find out what is their personality. We talked about taking that personality test. Secondly, what is their language of appreciation? And if you can't memorize it, you write it down, put it on a card, put it in your desk, put it in your billfold. So you know what their language is. So in those moments and those times where you understand that they need value, they need appreciation, you can go right. Hey, this is what they need words today. They need me to build them up. They need to be encouraged them, and I can do that. But there are some informal ways that also you can do that. Number one is just observe their behavior. How do you see them regularly encouraging other workers. Because listen, the majority of people typically speak appreciation in the language that they most desire. In other words, because my language is words of appreciation, words of encouragement, I think, well, everybody should be that. So I speak my language, you speak your language, whatever your language is. If it's gifts, you're notorious for giving gifts. Why? Because that's where you get value. It's the reason why sometimes, well, I don't know why she didn't appreciate the candle that I brought her, this scented candle, and put it on her desk. And what? I would love for people to bring me a candle. Well, because that's your gift. So what happens is you look around and you observe your coworker, observe that team member. What is their language? What are they constantly doing for others? Secondly, observe what they request of others. In other words, the things that they ask for tend to indicate what they really need in their life. What are they hinting about? What are they asking about? Thirdly, listen to their complaints. The things about which an individual complains may very well reveal their primary language of appreciation. Well, you know what? Nobody ever comes and nobody ever helps me. Well, there again, it may be acts of service. Well, you know what? She doesn't ever have any time for me. I try to talk to her and she won't give me 5 minutes. Okay? Again, listen to that complaint. It may be hers is quality time. She needs somebody that's just going to sit down. Well, nobody ever tells me I'm doing a good job. Nobody ever, they may be word. So you listen to their complaints. Now, in chapter 9, he talks about the potential blind spots. And by nature, again, we all tend to speak our own language of appreciation. And I do what comes naturally to me. And oftentimes, the language of appreciation that are least valued by me will seldom be spoken. And what happens, it becomes a blind spot. You know, having, people help me is, acts of service is not very high on my languages of appreciation. So what happens is what I least value, I seldom ever try to offer it to anybody else. And what happens is, Dr. Geary talks about, it becomes a blind spot to us. And I assume that it has little value to me, it will have little value to somebody else. And that's why I tell people we often commit a suicide. We assume something and it ends up being detriment to our workplace environment. We assume they know how much we appreciate. We assume, well, they know we're glad they're on our team. We assume, and what happens is I have to be careful that doesn't become a blind spot. So Dr. Geary talks about the first step in getting past the blind spot, particularly as a manager, as a leader, or as a colleague to somebody else. Just be aware of it. Just become aware. Understand we can all get spinach in our teeth sometime, okay? You know that scenario, right? And there's nobody there to tell us. It's a blind spot to us. We're not looking into a mirror. And one of the chief goals that we're constantly being challenged as leaders is how can we develop ourselves? It's encouraging to lead ourselves into growth because we not only see the value in us, but we see the value that we add to others. And I believe that two are different functions, but they both help us as an organization. Again, it's developing ourselves helps me develop other people around me. Whether you lead or manage a small group or a large group, the principles are truly the same. And the sad thing about today, when you look at some of the studies out there, many leaders demonstrate behaviors that actually sabotage their own personal growth and their organizational growth. And often it undermines the team's morale. And what happens, Dr. Geary talks about To be able to succeed as a leader, we need to learn how to recognize and then overcome our blind spots. I have to acknowledge them. I can't put my head in the sand and act like they're not there. But then after I recognize them, how do I overcome them? How do I make sure that I'm moving past that? Because what happens, blind spots create threats because leaders don't react until often too much damage is done. And again, that's what happens to dysfunctional teams. We talk a little bit about that in one of our other studies, is the dysfunctional team. Oftentimes that leader's not aware of what's going on. By the time they do react, it's too late, and the damage is already being done. Again, we all have blind spots, but those unproductive behaviors that are visible to us are often invisible to us, but they're glaring to everybody else. And our behavioral blind spots, what they do, they create this dire, unintended consequences. What happens is, if I don't acknowledge my blind spot about words of appreciation, value that, and I don't do something to correct that, oftentimes it will corrupt my decision making. It reduces my scope of awareness, and it creates enemies on my team, and ultimately it sabotages any intended results to motivate my team. And what happens is, now if you're things are going pretty good on the team, blind spots can just be kind of annoying and frustrating. But if things are tough and things are difficult and you're going through, blind spots can literally be lethal to that team. And leaders particularly have to be aware of this because we're vulnerable to this. Additionally, most leaders believe that we should have all the answers and we should know what to do, but oftentimes that's difficult to do if you're not constantly self-aware of what's going on around you. And, it's the old elephant in the china shop type awareness thing that we have to have. Some leaders are unaware of the impact of their behavior on their teams. They just don't understand that. And they often find themselves to the point where the team is already derailed or dysfunctioning before they ever step up and try to do anything to correct that. So again, what happens is our behavior, because of our unawareness of blind spots, is often difficult for us to kind of navigate through. And again, what I know in my life is that people will judge your behavior, not your intentions. Okay, understand that. People judge your behavior, not your, I got good intentions. Well, I love good intentions, and we all want to have it. But people look at our behavior. What are we doing? And again, what happens is with blind spots, we have to understand that they can be there, and we have to be sensitive to them to be able to navigate that. So the 5 languages of workplace is about, very simple this, be aware. In other words, know your team. People are individuals. They have unique expectations. They require different things from their leaderships, and some require more attention and some require less. But you just be aware of your team. Get to know your team. Know their personality. Know what their language appreciation is. Secondly, be open. Let them know that you as a person. Let them know what your personality is. Let them know what your language is. And often this is needed even outside the role as a leader or a manager, but being transparent enough that they can learn to trust us. And trust is so important in leadership. And then thirdly, be responsive. Don't leave people waiting too long for a response. If they've asked a question, I've got a 24-hour email stat that I go by. Within 24 hours, somebody emails me, calls me, I'm going to try to give a response. Now, sometimes my schedule, my time, it may be, my response may simply be, hey, got your email, several questions. I want to answer them as quickly as possible. It's going to take me another day, or I can get back with you by Thursday. I'm going to give you again a specific time. Why? That's just simply letting people know, as a leader, I want to be responsive to any request, small, big, large, coming in. Fourthly, be approachable. You can't be anything to anyone, and you may not always be available, but you can have the opportunity to be available and be approachable. Let people know that you are there because you care about them and you're glad they're on your team. And I realize as a group gets larger and more people, systems has to be built in, and we have that in this consortium. But listen, having people have the confidence that they can approach their leader, they can approach their team leader, they can approach their manager is so important of putting that trust together. Again, you can't be everything to everyone, and you may not always be available at every minute or second, but please let people know that you are definitely approachable. Number 5, just be consistent. You know, over the time, as you lead or manage a team, they need to see consistency out of you. They need to see that you're trustworthy to follow through on what you say that you'll do. And if you make a promise, you keep a promise. And if you can't keep a promise, you come back and you make sure that person understands why the things have changed, why this has happened, and that's taking place. Communication will help it become easier for us as team members when we learn how to value each other and we learn how to appreciate each other. And again, you don't have to wait until you completely understand everything about a person to act and to give. You can understand enough about what's going on in their life to the point that they help you be able to navigate that team and be a team member that people look forward to you coming. They look forward to you showing up. They look forward to you getting in the room. They look forward. Why? Because they know that you value them as a person, as a team member. You know their language, you know their personality, and now your team can really be together. So we're going to take another break here. Then we'll come back and we'll kind of wrap this thing up, tie everything together again.